This is a very serious critique of the Arrowverse's Batwoman, up until the last 10 minutes of this video where I literally get too tired about writing about the narrative plot holes and oopsies just story details. But the TLDR version of this video is that Batwoman isn't a mistake, it's a choice. A horrible, horrible, horrible choice that's worse than the sparkling vampires from Twilight. But at least that was hilariously memorable, while Batwoman is easily forgettable. In the case of Berserk 2016 adaptation by whatever that studio is, at least the frying pan thing was at least funny. But Batwoman is an abomination, not because of its overt political messages, but because the overall narrative makes you want to fall asleep, not exactly featuring edge-of-your-seat suspense. And considering that Green Arrow is ending, and this is the replacement for that show, this is a complete disappointment. And it's not because I hate women, or am I misogynistic, or an incel, it's because I believe genuinely, and I enjoyed J.H. Williams' 27-issue run on Batwoman and James Tynion's Detective Comics run supporting the character and the entire Bat family. But the problem with the Arrowverse's Batwoman is that it's a complete travesty comparing Green Arrow to Batwoman because this is supposed to be the successor. Stephen Amell's Green Arrow was dark, and all the letters in dark are in capital letters. But in the start of the show, Oliver Queen's drive for revenge was a part of his grieving process for what happened to him on the island and the injustice his father endured throughout season 1. That amplifies especially in season 2 and kind of flutters out in season 3 and 4 until we get to season 5 where things pick up and get decent again. But the overall point is, Oliver Queen's tunnel vision was so narrow he didn't care about the collateral damage he left in his wake, to the point where if you measured his good deeds with his evil deeds, he'd be responsible for many crimes, all for the sake of the fact that he enjoyed killing those people and getting revenge on the people who ruined his life. But the problem was Oliver Queen was dead, and for him to get revenge he'd have to reintegrate and reveal to the world that he was alive. And the very core foundations of the drama come from that stemming conflict, that everything was easier when Oliver Queen was dead, which to the cast was a blessing and a detriment simultaneously for the people around him, to once again bring up the conflict of the story being the balance between being a mass murderer vigilante akin to the Punisher and being a party-hard playboy that runs a multi-million-dollar corporation like Batman. While the police is up his ass about being the Green Arrow because it's not a coincidence that Oliver Queen is found alive, then some psycho in a hood rolls into town and begins taking names and kicking ass. But ultimately, the first and second seasons of the show were superb, being a balance between family drama and the origins of a pretty badass character, and how being who he is affected the people around him as he uprooted everyone's lives with his reappearance. Batwoman does the complete opposite, and it isn't tactful ripping into someone's ass like a Christmas tree. Ruby Rose isn't Batwoman because she's a bad actor. She isn't Batwoman because she's a 120-pound woman who can't fight and is devoid of logic, when the cinematography doesn't look like it's been taken from a Jason Bourne movie. To reiterate the problem, Ruby Rose isn't necessarily the problem, but the problem is the fight choreography in the show, and because Kate Kane is a woman, she should be using a distinctive fight style versus not one at all, which equates to bare knuckle fighting everyone she encounters, which doesn't make sense. It's not the very fact that women can't fight, it's the very fact that I've seen better fight choreography in Eastern films and television series on Netflix than on this show. Let me show you one of those fights from a Korean television show. All the fighting is believable as everyone appears to be a competent fighter. There is also a rhythm of kinetic energy and flow within all the actors' movements, and there isn't even a jump cut every 10 seconds or 7 seconds like in the clip I'm about to show you in Batwoman. But mainly notice how in the prior footage I showed you there is clarity, everything is clear to what's happening, there is spacing, you know what's going on, the punches are real, you can tell the actors are tired as the fight is strenuous, while in Batwoman you can barely tell what the fuck's going on, and you're questioning how Kate Kane, even though she's about 120 pounds, how is she able to take out these men via bare bone knuckle fighting? Notice how this isn't believable and highly improbable versus the latter. It just doesn't make sense. On Korean shows like Nowhere Man, Vagabond, The K2, and Man to Man, the fights look good because they're actually practicing them, because they're actually trying their best. While in Batwoman, not only does she not have the physical strength to do what she's doing here on the show, but it's without any grace to do it, and it's not skillful looking, shattering the immersion of the hyper-realized world. Now, if Batwoman was Superwoman or had the Deathstroke serum in her veins, yes, it would be physically possible and believable, but that isn't the case. And the only reason why she can win all of these fights is because of course she can, and the fights get progressively terrible as they continue on. But discussing episode 1 specifically, it's terrible, but I'll assume the writers did the best they could at the time because of course they did, and why wouldn't they? But this is the cast of characters that we have. Batwoman and Jacob Kane, lesbian pumpkinhead vigilante, discount Morgan Freeman as Discount Morgan Freeman, lesbian as lesbian soldier because of course she is, / lesbian ex-lover of Kate, and finally Alice as a psycho crazy bitch who's evil for less than humane reasons. Now it's important to understand there won't be a lot of footage of the show on screen simply because of copyright reasons and because the CW are jerks about their material floating around on the internet, so I'll do my best. So diving into the show, episode 1 literally opens a sequence that breaks your immersion and suspension of disbelief, having Kate Kane swimming underneath the Antarctic lake and punching a thick layer of ice because of course she can do that. It's also good to mention that there's a high probability that this ice has been frozen for hundreds of years, but with her bare fists, because of course she can break through it, even though normally people would have to use a chainsaw to cut through the ice. But Kate Kane's hands are wrecking balls of steel, so we really don't have to worry about that. In all honesty, I'd be okay with this scene if she became hypothermic from what she just did, but of course she didn't because apparently swimming in freezing lakes while butt naked has no effect on her because she's Batwoman, and of course it doesn't. But in addition to that, this is around the time where the plot kicks in, and we discover that Kate's ex-lesbian lover has been kidnapped by an Alice in Wonderland inspired gang because Alice's entire character is based around a woman who has had a massive psychotic break from reality, because it's the only kind of villain this show can produce. Villains that are evil, with little to no reason to why they're evil, thus creating someone who is evil just to be evil for not much reason or justification because they are evil. At this time we get a look at Chicago, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, a Gotham that takes heavy inspiration from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, down to the set design of Gotham. And here, it's discovered that for whatever enigmatic reason the plot must justify and mysteriously allude to that somehow and for some reason Batman is gone. He's not gone in the sense that he's dead, he's gone in the sense that he gave up, which is extremely uncharacteristic of Batman and everything we've seen of him in the Batman lore in the comics, but this is called Batwoman, so it must be justified. But to parallel this, for whatever reason, the show bombards the viewer with anti-Batman paraphernalia. However, when Batwoman makes her debut in the spotlight, the entire story goes from "we hate Batman" into "yes queen slay" mode for Batwoman, which translates to me as wasted potential. The screenwriter could have done so much with this by introducing Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael, into the story and have him be an anti-hero styled Batman like he is in the comics during the Bane Nightfall story arc, but for some reason they don't, because of course they didn't. Because if Batman abandoned the city or died, that's an okay storyline, if it all be explained later. However, there is too many characters within Batman's Bat Family and a roster of characters that live within Gotham City for it to be completely abandoned, such as Stephanie Brown Spoiler, Tim Drake Red Robin, Cassandra Cain Orphan, Harper Row Bluebird, and Carrie Kelly Robin would be characters still around in Gotham to fight the remaining supercriminals within Gotham, meaning that in this show, none of these characters exist, or they couldn't afford them. In fact, a character like Harper Row as Bluebird and Azrael as Jean-Paul Valley would completely make sense for this stylized version of Gotham in this show for vigilantes. But for whatever reason, these characters don't exist, and the spotlight is directed on Kate Kane like there's no one else more important than her within Gotham, because of course there isn't. Now, I understand this show is called Batwoman, however, because of the track record and the nature of these CW Arrowverse TV shows, they all ultimately bottom out as an ensemble casted television series, where you get retarded and irritating condescending dialogue like this.
I'm the Flash.
See, that's what you don't get.
When I put this ring on my finger, it wasn't just about you or me anymore. It was about us. You are not the Flash, Barry. We are.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Do you have super speed? No. Then you're not the Flash. Now, you can argue and say that because Batman is such a big franchise and his rogue gallery is so expansive, they couldn't include Azrael into this show. But the problem with that is, Thomas Elliot, or Tommy Elliot, is in this show, and he's supposed to be Hush. So the question becomes, why can't any of the characters I mentioned prior exist in this universe as street-level vigilantes? The people hear murmurs about. Why? Because of course they can't, because it's about Batwoman until you get to season 2 or 3 if that ever gets to the point of existing. Anyway, once the viewer has been shown hundreds of people complaining about Batman, mainly the rich fat bellies of Gotham, we get more complaining about him from our sassy main character as she whines and complains saying, "Batman killed my parents, Batman didn't give a damn about my family, I hate Batman, Batman abandoned me, Batman can suck a dick." Kate, for whatever reason, is nothing but excessive in her hatred towards Batman, but later we'll find out the reason why her parents died was because Bruce was busy trying to save a bus of runaway children and apparently miscalculated an angle of a shot for his grappling line, which caused this accident where Kate's mother and her sister assumably died, where we discovered that's not entirely true because the sister is really Alice, and the sister becomes a psychotic crazy bitch and the antagonist of the entire series for season 1, which is overall bullshit. Not bullshit in the very fact that she became the villain, but the idea that Batman miscalculated a shot which resulted in the tragedy that caused Kate to hate Batman. It's not bullshit because I'm a Batman fanatic, it's bullshit considering the first scene of this show is Kate swimming in a frozen lake and not getting hypothermia and not dying, which should have happened, but of course it didn't because reasons. But returning to the tracks of this video, because Kate is still in love with her lesbian ex-girlfriend, even though she says she isn't, but she really is, she goes to her father to help track down Alice to find her because that's what people are supposed to do for one another. Help, but not Kate's father because he's moronic. Even though he's running a paramilitary operation somehow, he's not useful at all. Thus, Kate does the next best available option at her disposal. Go to Wayne Tower by scaling the tower like a spider monkey and making the dork aka Discount Morgan Freeman completely appear unreliable to every extent because he is, while Kate uses the camera system that Bruce had installed around the city to track Alice and the Wonderland gang, and surprisingly, it works because why wouldn't it be that easy? Now the only question that needs to be answered is why can't these criminals be caught? If finding them is this easy, because of course they can be found this easily, why haven't they been caught considering a majority of the show will use the said same system to find other criminals, and it will only work and be convenient when it needs to be, because of course it does. Now if my memory serves me well, we're greeted to some steamy lesbian action featuring Ruby Rose and whatever that other female actress's name is, and this is happening during the don't ask don't tell military thing that occurred in the military with gay people. And the story, or well the screenwriters more specifically, show us these two lesbians kissing one another in broad daylight in this fictional West Point like school, and they are surprised to discover that someone caught them having steamy lesbian relations. This causes Kate to be dishonorably discharged or expelled from the school or whatever normally happens, and that other forgettable lesbian character whose name I probably will never learn has to sign a piece of paper that says she isn't a lesbian and she wasn't kissing Ruby Rose because that supposedly didn't happen according to the piece of paper, even though we have counterproductive and counterintuitive evidence. Now, you must be wondering, what's the significance of this sequence within this show? Well, it's politics. There isn't much reason why this scene is even here. I mean, it causes more problems than actually elevating the story or its characters, because the entire problem with the scene is that it literally doesn't make any sense. If they knew their relationship would cause something like this to happen, them being expelled or dishonorably discharged or however that works, why wouldn't they be more sexually discreet? Or was there a typhoon storming inside their cunt flaps that couldn't wait to get out, so they did it right then and there? But to reiterate, this is bad writing because TV shows like Doom Patrol can show a perfectly gay relationship during this time period without any problems, but Batwoman can't because it wants to shove its political themes to the forefront of the story instead of within its background. The gay relationship between Negative Man and John was, yes, a narrative plot point, but it's a sub-character arc within this character getting over his grief from abandoning everyone he ever loved and knew. And when they were kissing or doing their homosexual thing like having sex, it was in the middle of nowhere because they didn't want to get caught because Negative Man was married to his wife and had children. So they had sex in the middle of big ass fields and forests because that's how discreet they were and dedicated to not being found out and not being seen with a dick up another dude's ass. Meanwhile, in Batwoman, Kate just don't give a fuck. Kate and whatever her name is are giggling behind the bushes like schoolgirls and making out. Now, some would consider this maybe a character flaw, but I'd consider it just stupidity because that's what it is, stupid. So upon Kate putting her goober into Batman's computer systems and finding the information she needs, she shares it with her father's paramilitary group for some reason. And Kate gets sidelined because for whatever reason, her father is operating on the assumption that she hasn't been trained for decades of her life to kick ass and take names. So Kate goes to the location she found herself and arrives about an hour early before anyone from the paramilitary group because that makes sense somehow. And she kicks everyone's asses there and takes their names, which doesn't look as cool as it sounds because it's not cool. It's fake. It's not good at all in the sense, and that's beyond lazily choreographed. However, at the end of the day, the evil henchmen who are evil knock out Kate because they snuck up on her and hit her from behind and knocked her out because apparently she couldn't hear them, and that's the only way Kate could be incapacitated. They meet with the worst character in the show, Alice, psycho crazy bitch Sean. Then Alice pulls the ripcord on her evil monologue. And it's revealed her entire motivation is that because Kate's father doesn't give a shit about his own daughter, like someone watching a piece of shit swarming flies, she took the lesbian ex-lover simply to get at him because apparently he cares more about Kate's lesbian ex-lover than his own daughter because he secretly resents her for surviving a car crash that killed his ex-wife. Does that make sense? That's funny. I mean, how do you even bring that up in conversation? It's like, oh man, I fucking hate my daughter. What did she do? Well, she survived a car crash that killed my ex-wife. That's funny. I mean, Alice is a horrible character, but I won't deny that she is funny. Now, at this time, it's simultaneously hinted that Alice is Beth, Kate's supposed dead sister, which is 100% true, but Kate gives a suspicion because Alice's birthstone / important necklace and knife she wears has the same birthstone that her dead sister supposedly had. But before Kate can ask Alice any important questions, she gets knocked out and promptly brought to the hospital or morgue or office or wherever her stepsister works because the bad guys are really nice for whatever reason that can't really be explained, even though they're homicidal maniacs who kill and torture people. So after leaving there, she then talks to her father about what she just discovered, then back to Wayne Enterprises where Kate discovers the Batcave via through Death Note L and levels of deduction, which is a talent that Kate doesn't have because she doesn't have it for the remainder of the show. In all seriousness, in Death Note, the deductions the characters made were because they were always paranoid, trying to outplay one another with their big brain 200 IQ mind games. But in this show, Kate looked at Martha's pearls of necklace and then said, "It's not supposed to be tilted like that," meaning that this isn't supposed to be here, meaning that there's something secret here. Then she found the Batcave because of course she did. In Arrow, Green Arrow took about 3 to 4 seasons to ultimately develop for Oliver Queen to become the actual comic book Green Arrow. In The Flash, it took half a season for him to become the Flash. While in Black Lightning, he was already Black Lightning, but it took him a while to get his mojo back. But he did it, and it took him half a season for him to fully embrace his Black Lightning persona once again, while it takes 20 minutes for Kate Kane to become Batwoman. If anything, Kate should have been a vigilante akin to Daredevil before the ending of season 1 instead of putting a superhero costume on outright. But when Kate finds the Batcave, we get the infamous scene where Kate becomes the epitome of female empowerment.
The suit is literal perfection.
It will be. When it fits.
America sucks! Terrorists rule! Yeah!
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
And then she feels completely emotionless from the revelation that Bruce Wayne is her cousin and he is Batman. But upon coming to the realization that Gotham has super criminals and they need to be afraid of a symbol and not her, she decides to put on a suit and become Batman, I mean Batwoman, so she can be useful and find her ex-lesbian lover because she still loves her. So fast forwarding to the climax, Kate Kane completely mastered being Batwoman, I mean Batman, I mean Batwoman, in the span of a transition between scenes, because that makes sense. Now when I say that, it's me just normally being an asshole, because of course I am. But other times I say that because the story doesn't provide another explanation, because of course that character can do that. But this is the only outcome that could make sense with only about 10 minutes left in the show, so I guess it flies this time, but it really doesn't. But with Batwoman, I mean Kate Kane being able to be Batwoman, I mean with Kate Kane being able to master being Batman but calling herself Batwoman in the span of a transition between scenes, whereas it took Oliver Queen about 5 years of torture to become a master archer and a combatant, and The Flash about 5 episodes for him to stop crashing into walls, it takes Batwoman literally 0 effort for her to master being fake Batman, from using his equipment like the grappling hook to even using the paraglider built into the cape without messing up even once or crashing into any buildings, because of course that makes sense. For a first timer, I bring this detail up here specifically because in episode 4, Kate tries to use a batarang and fails to catch it, destroying an expensive and priceless vase in a museum, whereas here in episode 1, she is using all the equipment here flawlessly without issue, which breaks continuity and is completely suspect even though she hasn't been doing this for years. But fast forwarding to after the climax, Batwoman fights Alice. The fight is awful. Kate saves her ex-lesbian girlfriend, and as the episode winds down, while Kate tries to wiggle her way back into her panties, it's revealed that her ex-lesbian lover isn't a lesbian anymore, as she is now a bisexual and has a husband. But because this show is this show, and it takes place in this universe, there are one of several possibilities that will most likely occur. A, the husband is evil because of course he is, and why not? B, the husband dies for whatever reason that the screenwriters will poorly write into the story, so Kate and her ex-lesbian lover will get back together. C, the husband will discover he's being cucked, and because he doesn't want to be cucked, he can't put up with his wife's bullshit over the very fact that he's being cucked, and because this character doesn't want to put up with that, and due to the very fact that the screenwriters need these two characters to be together and be lesbians again, the husband will leave so Kate and her ex-lesbian girlfriend can be in lesbians again. And finally, option D, the husband cheats for whatever reason, because why wouldn't he, and they break up so the ex-lesbian lover of Kate can be the current lesbian lover of Kate, and bang, and they're back together. I can't tell you which one of these choices will happen. I'm guessing most likely A, because why wouldn't the husband not be evil in this show? But overall, one of those options will happen. But in a complete and total wrap-up of episode 1 of Batwoman, the ending monologue goes on and explains that she'll play by her own rules because she doesn't give a damn about the established order, blah blah blah, while discount Morgan Freeman is perfectly fine with everything that just happened because he's a useless fuckboy who is submissive and will do anything to be useful to any person because he's completely useless and he wants some type of validation in his life or something, I don't know. And then at the very end, we get a bombshell of Kate, and she discovers that Alice's knife is very similar to the birthstone that Kate has, and you know, she's supposedly this sister, which I revealed that it is, and overall it's just a boring episode and it's forgettable, when I'm not making stray observations about the narrative, plot holes, and the nature of the overall show. And that's pretty much it. Moving along to episode 2. Surprise! This isn't a good episode. This isn't a good episode because the dialogue is bad, but to furthermore add to that, it's bad because the episode is devoid of logic, and it's literally littered with stupidity from all the characters involved, as they make decisions that just don't seem rational, because of course they do for the sake of the writers, because there is no room for character development for this character or any of the characters. But the introductory scene for the start of this episode is is one of the most brain-dead, mind-melting scenes ever. You have to ponder and bend your suspension of disbelief to question how does nobody know Bruce Wayne is Batman, let alone Kate Kane is Batwoman, because she literally drives a motorcycle in the middle of the street into Wayne Tower's parking garage, which is supposedly the entrance to the Batcave, which isn't located on a Wayne Manor estate. But the point is, Kate Kane drove a motorcycle into her secret lair, driving in the middle of the street, and conveniently nobody was around to notice this because of course nobody wasn't. And the all-around point I'm trying to make here is that the secret lair to her secret base is publicly accessible and easily visible from about 100 different angles from casual bystanders. It's dumb. And in the next scene, Batwoman comes off as a condescending dickhead when she tells Discount Morgan Freeman he's not very useful, whereas in the previous episode, he modified the Batsuit to fit a woman in 30 minutes. And this is all because Discount Morgan Freeman doesn't know how to operate all of Batman's trinkets and gizmos because he's Discount Morgan Freeman. But continuing the plot point previously discussed around Alice is Beth, and Beth is really Alice, and Beth is not really dead, Kate goes on a journey to seek out the truth by not being very smart. But this isn't necessarily her fault because I want to give you the extra details surrounding the circumstances. So Alice is Kate's sister, however they originally died in the flashback where Batman failed to save Kate's mom and sister due to the very fact that he had to save a runaway bus. But how could they be alive, you might ask? We currently don't know, but what I do know is that the evidence used to verify the deaths are bone fragments from a deer skull. But to revoke a statement I just made, we don't know how necessarily Beth survived the car crash, but we do know is that miraculously when she did survive the crash, she floated down the river and a guy conveniently picked her up. But we'll talk about that more when episode 5 is talked about later in this video. But returning to the entire idea that Beth and her mother's bone fragments were really fragments from a deer skull, that literally makes no goddamn sense, because the plot twist to this entire scenario is that Kate's stepmom is evil, because of course she is, which isn't a surprise to me, to be completely honest. Oh my god. So what she did was she falsified the deaths of Beth and her mother because Kate and her father were grieving too much, so to get does that sound right? Let me say that again, just so you can understand. Because Kate and her father Jacob were grieving too much over the deaths of his wife and daughter, she decided to get some random people to kill a deer and rip out its skull and somehow pass it off as Kate and Jacob's dead wife and daughter. Does that fucking make sense to anybody? If anything, she did it because she was annoyed by both of the grieving characters. Because she's evil, because why not? I mean, saying it out loud and writing it down, it just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound right. I mean, I'm trying my best to see how this woman was trying to, operate with the best intentions, but I just can't see that. It just doesn't make any sense. So with that information sitting in the back of your mind, which will be revealed in episode 5, nobody throughout the years conveniently asked questions or to see the skull fragments or get a second opinion from another medical examiner. Because why wouldn't you want a second opinion on the supposed DNA results of your supposed possibly dead mother and possible dead daughter? Of course, Jacob Kane didn't, so don't worry about it. But overall, I think I don't have to explain why this is stupid, but I'll do it anyway. A deer skull isn't a human skull, and the idea that she did this because her stepfamily is grieving too much is beyond ridiculous. You heard me laughing about it earlier, and it doesn't make sense from an emotional or rational point of view. It must be why it's a secret she's willing to die for, because it's fucking dumb. But returning to the continuity of episode 2, when the knife Kate stole from Alice with her blood DNA on it, Kate wants to test the skull fragments that are really deer skull fragments against the DNA on the knife to figure out if the homicidal maniac known as Alice is really Beth, because she's a detective and it's a really good idea. However, her dad doesn't want to do it because he's retarded, and I can't think of another reason why he wouldn't want that to happen. I mean, the screenwriter doesn't want him to do it because they want to reveal the bombshell, like I just said. But what's even more dumber is that Kate told her father that she has Alice's knife. which could only be possible if she were Batwoman. And for some reason, nobody picks up on that fact because everyone must be hard of hearing or on their anti-anxiety medication that hinders a logical thinking process. But returning to the idea that Kate's father is retarded, it could be possible that he feels guilty for not finding his daughter and wife, or doesn't want to consider the possibility that his long-lost daughter is a psychopathic maniac. But either way you look at it, people are still fucking dying, which still makes it stupid. So I have no clue or understanding of why he's not running the DNA. He's deliberately ignoring key evidence that will lead to the capture of a psychopath he's chasing because his emotions are in the way. But to add more foundations to the pile of corpses, Alice is still killing people by the dozen. As I reiterate the point, people are dying by the dozen, thereby making every person she kills his fault because he's refusing to do the most logical thing because reasons that aren't really explained or making sense, making this all seem more retarded than it actually is. Actually, it's more retarded than it is. It's just stupid. The point is, it's stupid. Do you understand why it's stupid? Why would you hinder the investigation? But returning back to the Kate is Batwoman thing, she just indirectly acknowledged she is Batwoman. I have no clue why nobody picks up on this fact. If Kate has Alice's knife, it directly means that she's Batwoman because there's no other way she could naturally get it, considering the prior episode. And considering the continuity present in the prior episode, during the fight with Alice at the very end, that's when she would have logically got it, not when she was knocked out earlier in episode 1. Meaning that after one episode, the writers wrote themselves into a corner and the most logical question wasn't asked because Kate wouldn't have an answer and the show would be over because her secret identity would have been revealed before her career even started, so the question wasn't asked because it was more convenient for the writers. But that's not even the worst aspect about this episode. In episode 5, everyone comes to the revelation that Beth is Alice. And Kate was always right because of course she was. But everyone fails to put the logical pieces together, determining that Kate can only know this if she's Batwoman. But we'll talk about episode 5 later if I have the willpower to go over episode 5, because that villainous origin story is a complete mess. But refocusing on episode 2, because for some reason that isn't explained in the story, Alice is obsessed with her knife because reasons, or she's in the cult of crime like she is in the comic books. But because she is so obsessed over this one item of importance, Kate gets attacked by Alice's crew because she wants her knife back. Then Jacob Kane explodes with fury over this but continues to not ask how she even got the knife in the first place, refusing to give it to the GCPD or the Crows / the paramilitary operation her father is using and runs, and refusing to take the knife forcibly from Kate to protect her, and refusing to use the extensive resources to get the knife DNA tested because I don't know, and finally refusing to actually do his job to protect the city because I don't know. It's just all logically irrational, and that is the foundations of this television series. Irrationality. A character complains about something, and even though it's well within their power to do something about that situation, they don't, because of course they can't, because the screenwriters don't want that. I mean, the characters do their best in the sense that when things blow up, in this scenario, Jacob Kane screams that he wants Alice dead, but that can't happen because there are so many more episodes to go, and the show is very bad at diverting and subverting expectations about how certain characters are able to get out of certain scenarios because this show is dumb. Anyway, because this show is all about Kate and the unnecessary drama surrounding her, Kate goes to her stepsister who works at an underground illegal clinic where she treats patients while still in medical school. To be more specific, she's in her second year of medical school and isn't even a resident at a hospital or has had any real medical training. To be very realistic, this is an unauthorized illegal practice of medicine that can get your medical license revoked if she had one, and her expelled from her medical school facing up to 20 to life in prison, because what she's doing is illegal, meaning that she could accidentally kill someone, especially because she is a second year medical student. What she's doing is like playing Operation and pretending that you're God, with 3 to 2 years of medical studies, whereas real doctors take a decade to become real doctors. She's working with less than 1 1/2 of the experience needed because of course there won't be any consequences for her actions even though she isn't a real doctor, because nobody has died on her watch, supposedly. But getting back to the point, the stepsister is treating a thug Batwoman beat the snot out of, and because Batwoman wants him to give Alice a message because she'll know what that means if she's really Beth, they meet up. Then the screenwriters, I mean Alice, does the maybe I am, maybe I'm not game, which is annoying when they can't get the knife tested and have an actual answer, but they don't, because then we wouldn't have this non-suspenseful drama to fill up the runtime. And to add more suspense, the Crows and Jacob Kane show up because Kate's lesbian ex-lover ratted on her to her father because of course she did, and she's a loyalist. So when the Crows are there, they're there with assault rifles and machine guns, and they're ready to riddle Alice into a indistinguishable corpse. But for some reason, even though this character has been proven to be nothing more than an unhinged murderer, Kate jumps in between the gun and Alice. Then because rationality is thrown out the window, Alice gets into a transport truck, getting prepared to be taken to Arkham Asylum where she belongs, until the transport truck taking Alice to Arkham Asylum gets attacked by an explosive IED, falling into the river, causing the truck to submerge underwater, hence she begins to drown. But because Batwoman isn't there and is busy saving her stepsister from Alice's goons, because Alice thinks the stepsister is competition for Alice, when that doesn't really make sense because I'll tell you what happens next in episode 3, but the overall point is Alice is drowning in the river and Batwoman is 5 to 10 minutes away from the bridge where she fell into the water. Now, the logical problem here is with that is that Alice is drowning at the moment, and Batwoman is 5 minutes away or so, not accounting traffic. So the question becomes, will she die before she can make it over there? Of course she would if it was realistic, but of course she won't because that makes perfect sense, even though she's been underwater for at least between 5 and 10 minutes, meaning that her lungs have filled up with water and basically all her organs failed, and even if she did survive, she should have more brain damage than her character actually has. But because Batwoman is Batwoman, she gets over there, then she puts Batman's, I don't know, briefer in her mouth, and she's perfectly okay, not suffering any brain damage or organ failure because of course she didn't. Then the most stupidest thing happens. For whatever reason, the cops that were transporting Alice begin opening fire on the truck live on TV. They just start shooting. It's for no reason whatsoever. They just start shooting. It doesn't make any sense. She's trying to save her life, and they just start shooting. And here's the dumbest part. This is more dumber than that part. The truck blows up underwater. The truck blows up underwater. In all seriousness, after I've written it down and I've said it out loud, it just sounds so stupid. But the truck explodes into a fireball when it's underwater, which still doesn't make any sense because it's not even possible. And the shockwave is so powerful, it sends Batwoman to the shore's edge of some random place from God knows where, and Alice to God knows where as well, while the police search for Alice's corpse, which they don't find because this show does this all the time. But as the episode wraps up, ultimately Batwoman is perfectly fine and doesn't need any medical attention. Alice is perfectly fine. Nobody knows Kate is Batwoman, and oh wait a second, Alice knows Kate is Batwoman, so why doesn't anyone else? Putting 2 and 2 together, it's not that hard. The psychotic lady can do it, and she's detached from reality. But the second major thing this episode ends on is the fact that Batwoman is torturing one of Alice's goons to crank out information out of him, and because she enjoys hurting people, because of course she does, and not taking him to jail or anything would not make any sense at all, because that's what Batman would have done, therefore it doesn't make sense. Anyway, in the story, episode 2 sucks. So moving on to episode 3, we get Batwoman Hush, which is the second worst episode to episode 5, but because we're talking about episode 3, let's stick with episode 3, because episode 3 starts with a child Alice who is really Beth finding someone's face in a bucket. Now this is a reference to episode 5 and it's in episode 3 because continuity, I guess, but this doesn't make any sense because when Alice wakes up, she wakes up afraid, and it's revealed in episode episode 5, immediately in the beginning, that she does this. She goes to the morgue and she cuts people's skin off and she puts it on her friend who has like a facial deformation or a scar, but I can't describe it, so I'm just gonna say it. His face is just fucked up. But we'll learn about that more in episode 5, but let's just stay focused on episode 3. But when originally watching the opening to episode 3, you would think this is a reference to Jane Doe from Batman's Rogue Gallery, but it isn't. It's a reference to the character Onomatopoeia from DC Comics as well, which I'll talk about when we get to episode number 5 once again. But Onomatopoeia in DC Comics is a super villain that has the ability to make onomatopoeia or change his voice and create sound effects very much akin to a comic book, and he kills superheroes. That's like his specialty. He only kills superheroes and he doesn't go after innocent people. He just kills superheroes, but we don't know what this show's doing because it's pretty much off the walls and uncharted territory. But with the opening of episode 3 continuing, Kate begins giving her viewer narration as she explains that she can't protect Gotham as Batwoman because she's not Batman. But the real reason why she can't protect the city is because she has no real training or experience being a vigilante. But the real reason is that because she doesn't have the drive or need to be a hero like Batman Bruce Wayne did or Oliver Queen, ultimately she can't be a hero because the only reason why Batwoman is wearing the costume is because she conveniently found it along with the Batcave, and she stole someone else's identity before she could mold her own. It's the classic scenario of people identifying Batman as Bruce Wayne instead of Bruce Wayne as Batman, believing that Bruce Wayne is the skin Batman wears when he's not Batman and needs a break. Kate Kane is Batwoman, but it's Kate Kane wearing the costume without fully embodying the persona that she's trying to mimic, like a pale imitation. To put it quite simply, anyone can be a hero, but not all heroes need to wear costumes, and Kate Kane is one of those characters. She conveniently found a costume, and because she didn't have the drive to help people or need to want to help people, and only put that costume on for arrogance and selfish reasons, she's not a real hero, like Oliver Queen or the Flash. Notice when the Flash became the Flash, he immediately wanted to use his powers to help people because that's what he solely believed in. People do good things for good reasons and people help because it's the right thing to do. Kate put the Batwoman costume on, or Batman's costume on, is because she just wanted to help her friend for that one time. And now she's just slogging her way throughout this entire story. She doesn't give a damn about anyone, she just cares about herself and her own agenda. Because if she really did care, Alice would be in prison, because by episode 3 there has been multiple occasions where Alice could have been captured by a Batwoman and she should be in jail, especially in episode 5, but that doesn't happen because the plot needs to continue on and Alice still needs to be wandering around doing whatever irrational nonsense that she needs to do because she's a pale imitation of the Joker. But the real reason why this show has been so infuriating is because Kate Kane honestly doesn't deserve to be Batwoman. She's a trash bag personality-wise and development-wise. It's like she skipped the hero's journey and just became the hero by episode 1. As where in Daredevil, it took an entire season for Matt Murdock to become Daredevil and have his super suit, Batwoman puts it on and pretends to be something she's not, and the screenwriters fail to see that. But continuing with the episode, Kate sees that the bat symbol is in the sky, and because she's Batwoman, she goes to check it out. But here's the problem. She goes as Kate Kane and not Batwoman because she has brain damage, or her mind melted, or she smoked a doobie and lost some of her brain cells, because I can't even justify why she would do this, but let's just say she does it because of course she can, and the screenwriters are God, which literally makes no sense considering she's trying to keep a secret identity, because she doesn't know who's on that rooftop using the bat signal. It could be Commissioner Gordon, it could be her father, it could be the Joker, it could have been her ex-lesbian lover, it could be the Crows. Anybody from the 9 o'clock news could be on that rooftop, and she has the audacity to go there as Kate Kane and not Batwoman. If it was anyone else but Alice at this moment, they would have immediately known Kate Kane is Batwoman. But like I said, Alice shows up, and Alice is there because of course she is, and there isn't anyone else that's interested or would be attracted by the bat symbol, because that makes sense, meaning that if Alice was bluffing that she thought Kate was Batwoman, she just confirmed it now. But this is when the show gets brain dead stupid again, like someone's brain shrinking from smoking too much weed. But Alice and Kate have a conversation, and it goes like this. Alice wants her boyfriend back, the one that Batwoman took and is currently torturing, and Kate wants Alice to stop killing people. So instead of beating the shit out of her and throwing her in jail, they make a deal where if Alice doesn't kill anyone for at least 24 hours, maybe Kate will give her boyfriend back. When I wrote it down, I knew it sounded stupid, but after saying it, I just know it's stupid. And I remind you, Alice is a mass murdering terrorist, and superheroes aren't supposed to negotiate with terrorists, but apparently Kate does, and they both agree on the terms and they walk their separate ways without Kate trying to put a tracker on her or just beating her up for no apparent reason and throwing her in prison where she's supposed to be, because Kate Kane is a hero. But moving along, you'd think I'd learn these characters' names after 5 episodes of watching them, but I don't, because none of them have done anything that stands them out as individuals. But ultimately, the lesbian ex-lover of Kate is now the stepsister's bodyguard, but the stepsister didn't know that because reasons, meaning that logically the stepsister was in enough danger to have a bodyguard, but she wasn't in enough danger to be informed of that information, which makes perfect sense for a monkey. But continuity wise, that doesn't stack up because she isn't the bodyguard in episode 4 or 5, but only in this one, so I'm guessing the danger the stepsister was in is conditional danger. But skipping over all the drama of why Kate's lesbian ex-lover is so obsessed with Kate even though she's married to a man, and jumping to the main plot, Thomas Elliot has returned to Gotham, and he's looking for Bruce Wayne because he knows Bruce Wayne is Batman, because of course he does, and with that logic of Batman being back in town, Bruce Wayne can't be far behind. And despite knowing this piece of information, he isn't subtle about revealing it to everyone he knows, but it flies over everyone else's head because why not? So in a predictable fashion, we know that Tommy Elliot is trying to kill Bruce Wayne. However, the question is, how will he do it? Well, his plan is to shoot Batman / Batwoman with a gun, and that's it, because it's revealed Bruce Wayne makes guns and stores guns in this universe, because why wouldn't he make the device that was used to kill his parents? And why wouldn't he tell everyone that he made a gun specifically to kill Batman, because it's clearly not a secret if Tommy has it and knows about it. But it's just not a normal gun, it's a rail gun he made specifically to kill him, because the bat suit is bulletproof and not bullet resistant, so if for whatever reason Batman went off the rails and needed to be stopped, they'd use this gun to stop him. Or just in case if some criminal stole the bat suit, God forbid, and began using it to do evil things for evil purposes. But I'm guessing Batman didn't consider someone could be using the gun to use it for other nefarious purposes than just to kill him, right? Wrong. So the question becomes, if Tommy is such a genius, why is he so fucking stupid? Even though Kate believes he's some kind of sociopathic intellectual making a big brain 200 IQ play, knowing that Bruce Wayne is Batman, overall you'll understand what I mean by explaining how moronic he is in a few minutes. But Tommy gives an invitation to Kate to his party so he can invite Bruce to it so he can kill him for petty reasons with a railgun. Meanwhile, while that's happening, Alice is murdering people because Alice is a murderer and she has a murder boner, and it's so strong, to the point where she needs to kill at least one person per day, and it's all Kate's fault because God forbid she can't be wrong about something. And the episode doesn't even acknowledge that it's her fault that this person died, and it's not discussed or talked about ever. But I'll talk about it because Batwoman just became an accessory to murder. But skipping through all the melodrama between Kate and her ex-lesbian lover, whose name I still haven't learned, Kate walks in on Tommy, who's playing with the gun behind a door that isn't even locked, so anybody could have walked in, while he searches for a GPS tracker that isn't there, according to Kate, because she lied, because Kate's a liar. And then we find out Tommy's evil. Surprise, surprise. So when Tommy reveals to Kate that Bruce Wayne is Batman because the Riddler told him, meaning that despite however smart Tommy is, he wasn't smart enough to know that Bruce Wayne is Batman, which is stupid considering they are childhood friends and apparently friends for most of their adult and teenage lives, according to the show being the bestest of friends. Batwoman is in complete dismay and awe of why Tommy would want to kill Batman if he knew Bruce Wayne was Batman. So Tommy spews out his monologue, and his reasoning for wanting to kill Batman and Bruce are because Batman saved his mother, and Tommy's mother was insane just like how he is in the comics, and because Tommy had to take care of her and couldn't get any of his inheritance because she's alive, he wants to kill Bruce for saving her life. When you write it down, it sounds stupid. When you say it out loud, it sounds stupid. Every episode of this show has a character with a plan that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't know why they do what they do, but they just do it. Because instead of killing his mom like Tommy Elliot does in the comics, in this show he does nothing about it and blames Bruce for all his problems. It's pretty much the same comic book storyline, but there was more in-depth character analysis behind his psychosis. In this show, he's just crazy for no apparent reason. And instead of sucking it up like a man, he just throws a temper tantrum now because of course he can and reasons. Like I said, Tommy's reasoning here is nothing but petty and does nothing but just show how unhinged he is. He puts random people in danger because he can, because he's unhinged, and he's having a psychotic break from reality like all villains do. But upon Kate returning to the Batcave so she can go get Batman or so she can go suit up, she comes to the realization that for some reason, she's better than Batman, even though she's allowed her homicidal and unhinged sister to kill innocent civilians. And when she later captured that said sister for the 5th time and let her walk away because of course she did, and she's a hero, and she's better than Batman somehow. So the entire reason why Kate's in the Batcave right now is because she's supposed to get Batman, but Batman's not there, so she has to suit up as Batwoman. Here's where the problem comes in. Instead of wearing the suit as is, she decides to put a Party City red wig on the Batman cowl, and a discount Alfred redesigns the Batsuit in under an hour because they aren't in a rush or anything and there aren't any innocent civilians in danger, and because of course they can, and who cares about all those people who are going to die and are in danger right now. Kate doesn't, because she's too concerned of being misidentified as Batman and wants to be known as Batwoman, because she's here and Batman's not. So to reiterate, while all those people are in danger, she puts a red wig on the costume, she has time to do makeup, the discount Morgan Freeman is able to redesign the Batsuit in under an hour, and somehow she didn't suspect that the unhinged man with a gun on top of a roof killing people isn't going to have a psychotic break again and kill poor people for the heck of it. Because reasons. So Batwoman finally shows up on the roof with Tommy, and for whatever reason, he's sane enough that he didn't kill anyone while he was waiting for her. And when Tommy sees Batwoman, he calls her Batman's side piece, and initiates his endgame to his 200 IQ big brain play master plan, which is to stand on a rooftop with a gun like a madman and monologue about how the world has wronged him and it isn't fair. Then shoot Batman with a gun, a person who's really damn good at avoiding bullets, which normally gets shot at him on a nightly basis for someone of Batman's stature, and kill him because it's that easy. Like I said, Tommy is a bloody moron. He's better off nuking the entire building, killing everyone just to kill Batman, than going through with this dead brain plan. So to wrap up the episode, Batwoman uses a magical ex machina device to disable the gun like it's stolen out of a Batman Arkham game. Then Batwoman beats the crap out of Tommy, but Tommy, being a selfish prick, blows up the elevators in an attempt to get away for Batwoman to save everyone because nothing can go wrong in this show for her. Then just when Tommy decides to come back and work up the nut to kill Batwoman with the gun she supposedly disabled, re-enabled, Alice comes completely out of nowhere, ex machina style, and saves Batwoman at the perfect time. And for some reason, she doesn't kill Tommy like the person she killed earlier, which doesn't make any rational sense for a character considering the very fact that she killed the innocent person earlier for no apparent reason. But I guess Tommy's going to be coming back onto this show if it gets another season or so. But I guess it would make sense then. But the point is, it still doesn't make sense. But to top it all off, Alice shows Kate a picture of the man she just murdered, to then go on a big rant about how she wants Kate to stop thinking of her as her sister, which breaks continuity, being contradictory to what she wanted in episode 2, but this show doesn't make sense on a regular basis, so I wouldn't think about it. And Kate responds by saying that if Alice continues to kill people, she'll stop thinking of Alice as her sister. And Alice walks off and she gets away scot-free, and Batwoman doesn't really try to stop her because of course she doesn't, because she's a hero. Meanwhile, Tommy Elliot gets transported to prison where he says he'll get out in less than an hour, which he won't unless he can reveal to the world that Kate is Batwoman and Bruce Wayne is Batman, but he's too stupid to figure that out, and the episode ends. The end. Another bad episode. Episode 3 is garbage overall. On to episode 4. It's Booty Call. We get another monologue about how she's been out and proud her entire life as a LGBTQ XYZ 123 know-it-all since she was in kindergarten. And because she's been gay her entire life and out and proud, she's having problems handling a dual identity. But that can't be possible or make any goddamn sense, because being a closeted homosexual and having a secret identity for your superhero persona are two different things, with one possibly getting every person you love and care about being killed, and another possibly having people's feelings hurt depending on where they sit stand on their beliefs. But whatever, float your boat, Kate. I don't care. You make whatever analogy you need to justify whatever bullshit you need to validate your existence. Remember in episode 2 about how that guy's being tortured by Batwoman? He's still being tortured by Batwoman inhumanely, and it's been going on for days now. And he doesn't have proper medical treatment because of course she doesn't, and she's a vigilante after all, and because Batwoman's evil. So when this guy goes into shock and he needs real medical attention from a hospital because of his weeks of torture, Batwoman takes Alice's boyfriend to her stepsister's illegal medical clinic where she's not a real doctor, which is illegal and isn't a real hospital because real hospitals would have had to report grave injuries such as this to the police. So yeah. Anyway, meanwhile, Batwoman fights Magpie and fucks up, destroying a priceless artifact because she didn't train in using any of Batman's equipment. So discount Morgan Freeman gets accused of quote-unquote bat-splaining, while Batwoman refuses to acknowledge her own failure, blaming the equipment and not her because she's perfect. And in the following scene, everyone discovers some unimportant drama that I've already discussed in this video, like Alice being Beth and the stepmom being evil because she's falsified the deaths of the husband, you know, blah blah blah, the wife and daughter, Jacob Kane, Beth being Alice, you know, the deer skull, XYZ, because she grieved too much, because that still doesn't make any sense. Anyway, getting back to the main plot, Magpie steals Martha Wayne's pearls after breaking into Wayne Tower, which has a really poor security system for this being Bruce Wayne's headquarters and the location of the Batcave, and for someone like Batwoman, she wants to steal them back to rediscover the fake pearl necklaces at the gala she's going to, because in this episode she's going to a gala with her fake ex-girlfriend, the person she had a booty call with, and then discount Morgan Freeman is all like, oh man, you brought a girl, you mean a date to a takedown, and Kate's all like, I guess I did. So wrapping up this episode, Batwoman wins because of course she does, nearly killing Magpie as she falls about 40 stories into a small body of water, which really doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand why she's not dead, while Batwoman throws a batarang, almost killing a child. But it doesn't kill them because this time discount Morgan Freeman actually calibrated the batarang for Batwoman because Batman's taller and he has bigger arms than Kate, XYZ this, excuse. And the ending of the episode leaves us on the note that Batwoman is here to stay as she shines the Batlight across the sky. Overall, the episode sucks. There's a lot of plot holes, but I'm too lazy to go over them at this point. There's honestly too many, and a lot of the details surrounding the events of the episode are unnecessary, but the main plot is boring, the subplot makes you want to sleep, and overall this show is just painful to watch. But getting into episode 5 is the absolute worst because rationally it doesn't make any sense, and I'm not going to dilly-dally on the details, but here's a summary of the entire episode. Alice is a psychotic bitch, and throughout this entire episode we learn her backstory, which doesn't justify all the people she's murdering and killing. But to add to that, and a greater detriment to the show, for whatever particular reason the screenwriters believe Alice is an actual character, and that her character isn't just a person that has had a psychotic break from reality and enjoys killing people. So they decide to flesh out her backstory in the worst possible way, by not really explaining it at all. So when it comes to characters like the Punisher and Moon Knight who kill on principle, they work because they kill on principle. However, Alice just kills people indiscriminately without a care and takes pleasure in it, even when taking innocent lives, ranging from children to elderly people. So what is there to feel sympathetic about? She's a trash bag, not Hannibal Lecter or Dexter Morgan. There's nothing to flesh out. Overall, to make a long story very short, this entire episode is that when Alice was a child and the car accident happened, she was abducted by a cartoonishly evil man who found her at the riverbank. And instead of taking his son to a dermatologist for his face condition because his face is fucked up, plastic surgery was clearly off the table. So in an attempt to try to fix his son and his face condition because he looks like a monster, he abducts people, kills them, removes their faces, and puts them on his son like a skin graft. Because that rationally makes sense. Oh my god, what is wrong with people in this show? So keeping all of this in mind, the most rational thing to do next after kidnapping a child is to have that said child be your son's best friend, because of course that also makes sense. It's at this point it's revealed that Alice lived with this fucked up family and another character named Mouse, very similar to the DC villain Onomatopoeia, who can mimic voices and make noises creating onomatopoeia. It's also revealed that he's responsible for making Alice, him hints explaining why she's a sociopath who likes killing people for no reason. To put it in perspective, this character is supposedly so crazy they've already been to Arkham Asylum and they've already escaped. But in a layer of another lore, what we learn here is that when people escape from Arkham Asylum, for whatever reason, is not reported on the news or anything. They just escape and no one says anything. What is wrong? What is wrong with people in this show? Personally, if I lived in Gotham and someone just escaped Arkham Asylum, I want to know about it. I don't want to not know about it. And there's no justification of why they do this. They just do because of course they do. But starting from the start of the episode, Alice runs around Gotham City removing skin from dead people to attract Batwoman's attention. And when that attention is had, Batwoman captures Alice, and instead of taking her to prison, jail, or the GCPD or the Crows, she puts her in her own personal prison because I don't know why. I wish I knew. I really wish I did, but I just don't know why she does what she does. It doesn't make any sense. I think I'm gonna have a psychotic breakdown if I keep talking about this show. So instead of doing that, we get this backstory in a road trip episode because why not? Do the irresponsible thing instead of being responsible as a vigilante superhero. So on this road trip, we get Alice's edgy backstory with her and the creepy face guy and the onomatopoeia guy. But here's the problem. There's always a problem with this show that just doesn't make sense. The problem is that Alice's plan is so convoluted, it's even crazier than she is that it worked. Meaning that Alice deliberately stole that skin to be caught by Batwoman in the hopes that she didn't take her to jail, which then led them on this road trip, which then landed them in this very specific diner that she knew somehow they were going to eat that, which then just so happily had a follower from her crew there working there who drugged Kate, which allowed the entire plot to happen. So then Alice could trap Batwoman / Kate within the jail cell that she was in when she was a child because reasons that make any less than sense, like that sentence. But the most frustrating thing about this episode is that at the end and all throughout the episode, there are numerous moments where Kate could have captured Alice, subdued her, ending her homicidal rampage, but she just doesn't seem to care, so I have no fucking clue why she continues to fail being a vigilante superhero. But ultimately, at the end of the day, everything is stupid. In the very few last minutes of the episode, they could have slapped the cuffs on Alice and took her to Arkham or to prison or Blockade or wherever she needs to go. In fact, they could have shot her right then and there, killing her, claimed self-defense, and no one would have been alive to question their story or their narrative, and ending her homicidal rampage in Gotham. But no, they don't. They literally let her go. They let her walk off the premises, and they don't even try to get her. I don't understand a lick of what's going on in this show. But after reviewing a total of 5 episodes of this show, what conclusion have I come to regarding this series? Well, after giving it a fair 5 episodes, this show gets the final rating of rest in piss.